All right. Oh, let me just share my screen here. Okay, I think we're sharing. We should be good. A couple. All right, and I'll unmute as well. So now, for sure, we're should be good. I wanted to cover a couple quick things that came up on the break. One of them was trying to track down, small little differences. If you look at the actual amount of code we typed today, it was near zero. But we put code and we changed things in 20, 30 different spots. Wait a minute. Why are you laughing at me? Oh, you're laughing at my support group? Okay. All right. So one of the things that you can do is there are different comparison tools out there. One of the ones that I've used in the past that I really like is called Beyond Compare. And it's made by a company called Scooter Software. I'll just put the link here. And what this software will do is you can really quickly, as you can see, compare folders or text. And you can merge folders, merge text. But let's just take a look at the text comparison tool here. So I'm going to compare my prep code with my what we've been building in class. They'll be similar. They won't necessarily be identical. So all you have to do the text compare is just open your files. And I know when people are trying to find the differences, it can be so tedious and time consuming. So if I open up here, so my week 5 prep, so let's do the sign-in activity because we just did that one, and I'll say open. And then in this other frame here, I'll go to my other project that I'm working on right now. To the sign-in activity. And you can see right away what it does is it will try its best to line up each line of code, and you can basically tell it what degree of differences. So if I select minor, it's not going to show me a difference here because there's a blank line kind of thing. But you can see line for line where things are different. Now this is just a comment, so it doesn't really care. You can see here, for some reason I put a semicolon. I guess my Java roots. I put a semicolon here, but I didn't have a semicolon here. It's going to show me all the little differences. On my new one, in my toast message, I'm missing an N in the word sign on, which wouldn't make it fail. It's just technically a typo. But the cool thing is you can even just add that little difference, and it changes the color code, and you can hit save, and it actually updates the file for you. So again, this is called Beyond Compare. I got it from Scooter Software. It's an inexpensive tool, and again, you can do folders, you can do text files, you can do whatever you want. Obviously here, this is the same method, it's just in a different spot. So it identified it as different, but yeah, I could just drag it down. So for those that are hunting and trying to find those little differences, this is what I would recommend. So that was one item that came up. And then right before the break, the question came up, hey, could we connect maybe our comments with the specific user? And I said, yes, we can. And the way that you do that is in the onStart method. So in the onStart method, remember we have a life cycle that our app goes through. So it goes on create, and then it goes to onStart, and then on resumed. And in there, in the onStart method, you can just say val current user equals, and then you ask auth.currentUser and update UI, and you get the current user. So that's one way you can get the user, or the way that we did it from our first activity. I'm going to close my Beyond Compare here. The way that we did it here is we actually passed the user from one activity to another by actually passing the user object in the intent. And then in the subsequent intent, I could get the extra and pull the user information. So hopefully that tells you how you can access the user, and what you would have to do if you wanted to store the user, like what user, for instance, made a comment. Then let's go back to my project. What you would have to modify is, for example, in our comment class right now, we have a comment ID, and we have a restaurant ID. What you would have to do is add in, I'm not going to do this, but basically you would add in, well, we have username there. You could substitute user, or add in user ID. If you wanted the specific user, or you could get the ID from the user, or the user's name from their ID. So hopefully that helps with a couple of those questions. And the other thing you can do is you can say Firebase auth, get instance, and sign out. So if you want to log out a user, that line of code will remove them or sign them out. And if you don't do that SHA one little fingerprint, you'll get something that's called code 10 error. All right. So that's all the things I wanted to cover before reading week. But now you should very easily have the ability to add authentication to your application, which I believe is required in assignment number 2. So now the next thing we want to do is we're going to add some simplistic navigation here. What time is it? Yeah, we should be able to make this all work. If you haven't already, I mentioned it right before the break, go into your AVD manager, and you want to set up a tablet. And to do that, you're going to click on Create Virtual Device, click on Tablet, select probably one of these Nexus ones, and then go to Next, and then pick whatever software you want. But if you don't have the software already downloaded, this process can take like 15-20 minutes to download the software. So start that now, because we're going to need it later. Okay, so let's see. Let's pull up our app. So right now, when I click on a restaurant, I can enter in my name. We're at Dino's. What kind of food does Dino's serve? Let's say the burgers are great. So after I do that, it gets added to the DB, the comment, deli stuff. Okay, well, I guess there's a burger in a deli, right? Maybe, maybe not. But I have no way to navigate back. Like, I can use this back button, but that actually isn't really an ideal way for the user to navigate through through an application. So what I wanted to show you today was something called the floating action button. And the idea of the floating action button is we don't have enough restaurants in here, but if we were to scroll up and down, these buttons would become hidden or whatnot, just like pictures scrolling through a lot of text. A floating action button, the intent is it's sort of floating on top of the application, separate from what the user gestures are with the rest of the screen. So it'll always be wherever you anchor it. It sort of floats on top. And later in the course, we're going to talk about a more robust navigation tool. But for now, we can just add in these floating action buttons just to give us a little bit of a way to navigate around. So right now, when we get to our comment section, we can't really do anything else. So let's go to our resource files under layout, under comments, and so that's the item comment. So under activity comment, and in here, what we want to do is add in a floating action button. And all I want to do is to go back to my other view. So to do that, I'll go, I'm actually going to grab a little icon first. So I'm going to click on the drawable folder, and I'll right click and say new vector asset. Okay, so again, I right clicked on the drawable folder and selected a new vector asset. And where it has clip art, I'm just going to click on the this little image where it says clip art, and then you can search for things. So I'm going to search for back, and I can see here we've got this back arrow. So I'll say OK, and I'm going to call this back arrow, and I'll say next. Finish. So now I have this back arrow in my drawables folder. Doesn't look like much. I'll add it to Git. But in my layout file now, so I'm in the activity comments layout file. On the design view, under buttons, I'm going to grab this floating action button and bring it down to the corner here. And it will ask me what image I want in my floating action button. So I'm going to choose the back arrow. Say OK. And so now I have my floating action button. I'm going to anchor it to the right side and to the bottom. And under the split view, scroll down. I'm going to rename this to be the back FAB, the floating action button. And then all we have to do is update our activity to use this floating action button. So our comment activity, go into that class. And let me just compress things a little here. So in our comment activity, everything we were doing actually is in the onCreate method. So if I expand that, just collapse some of these so we can see things a little easier. So in our onCreate method, we set up our binding class. We are getting the name of the restaurant ID from our intent. We've got our save comment button. And now we've got binding.back floating action button. Set on click listener. And we'll go back to the, what we call it, grid recycler activity. class.java. So now when it comes in, if I go to my email, I use the same email as before, test@test.com. So this time it's not a sign up, it's a sign in. This is odd. Looks like it just kind of hung on me there. And then you can see it recognizes when you're a new user versus an existing user. So now you just have to put in the password, test123, hit sign in. It takes me to my restaurants. And now I can see this back button. So if I decide, I don't want to make another comment, I just hit the back button and it brings me back here. Now the other thing is, right now, we can't actually add another restaurant, right? That was our main activity, but we couldn't do it. We have no way to navigate there right now. So what I want you to do is I want you to add a floating action button to this scene with a plus symbol on it that will navigate to our main activity. So your job, again, is add a floating action button down here with a little plus symbol on it. They will navigate to the main activity and allow us to create new restaurants. It's 1:27. Let's give it 5 minutes. So 1:32.